In statement and conversation analysis, it's understood that a person's language gives clues about their personality, their opinions, what they're afraid of, what they really want, and so on. People tell the truth, even when they're trying to conceal it. In this video, I'll take a closer look at Nichole's phone interview 2 days after Chris Watts' arrest. Overall, I will look at her self-protective and ultimately self-serving language. To do this, I'll focus on distancing words, words indicating self-awareness, minimization, and presuppositions. Lastly, I'll focus on how Nichol takes control of this interview, which is unusual. Don't forget to like and subscribe, it helps this channel out a lot when you do that, thank you. Also consider signing up on Patreon. Let's get to it.
So what you texted me about 2 a.m. and said that you remembered some other information. What did you remember?
Like just kind of odds and ends. And I'm sure there will be more as this goes on. I interacted with him so much that sometimes I just have to stop and think about how much information that I have gotten from him over the last few months and the last week or so. And, like I said, I never know what's true and what's not anymore.
Sure.
But I figured I'll just give you guys everything I have. And hopefully I don't have to keep calling you back with more, but no promises.
No, that's okay. Please do. Like I told you yesterday, anything that comes to mind that you think is important, I'd like to know.
Just is a so-called dependent word, an extra word used to modify an utterance. If you hear someone say, "we're just friends," you know that another thought has entered that person's mind, typically the exact opposite thought. So just is used to compare one thing with at least one other thing. We observe it multiple times in Nichole's language. Here, it first points to Nichol having thought about something else than just odds and ends, and second, it points to her having thought of something else than stopping to think about the information from Chris. Kind of is a hedge, weakening the idea that it's just odds and ends she remembers. This is Nichole's first downplaying of the information she has, indicating it's of little value. She doesn't say maybe, she's sure there will be more information. We underline a word like this, because it may suggest that the subject has more information in this moment than they let on. Shows awareness of the agent's presence. As an expression, is designed to create alignment and association. It's also a quote-unquote cheat expression, because notice that the other speaker doesn't actually know. The subject just assumes that they do. As an agent, you should be alert to a statement like this. On one level, it's a self-protective stance, giving the subject leeway to not commit to the truth, leeway to sound vague. On another level, however, it indicates a high probability of unreliable accounts. Just is again creeping into her language, modifying the entire utterance. Again, this suggests that she's thought about another level and giving everything she has. Everything I have ends her preface. Most answers have prefaces. Initial statements leading up to the real answer. As human beings, we're rarely direct. We seek to present ourselves in a certain way, whether we're conscious about it or not. In Nichole's case, she presents herself as an honest participant on one hand, supposedly not having anything to hide. But on the other hand, she also knows it's more than okay for her to call back. So she's telling the agent what he wants to hear. And now he's put in a position where he's reassuring her that it's okay. In the following, notice how Nichol ingratiates herself with the agent in something that seems like an informal, casual conversation. She's good at that.
That's anything that he said to you or anything that stands out to you as you're reflecting on all this kind of mess here is important for me to know.
Understood. Couple things. So one, I went back and I tried to find whatever text you were talking about between my friend Charlotte and me with the eHarmony thing, and I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Her and I text so much though, so if you find it and you show it to me, let me know, but it's just I was on that site, but it was never worth it for me, so.
Sure.
Nichol starts out minimizing the amount of information, even though later on we hear her say there's so much. Thing, as a so-called countable noun, is used to refer to the dating website in a vague manner, suggesting that it's not very important. Is a hedge, weakening the certainty of what she's stating. though is Nichole's indirect way of admitting that the text the agent's looking for may actually exist. Just like her use of hedges, this is self-protective and self-serving. She says but twice in this short passage. As a paratactic conjunction, but minimizes that which precedes it. When we also consider her last utterance, it's evident that Nichol doesn't want to be associated with this website.
It wasn't really something that I ever discussed with her. However, when I was going back through there, I did realize that I had offhandedly mentioned to her a little bit about Chris. I didn't tell her that I was how deep the rabbit hole went on that, I guess you could say, but it was kind of vague, and she was asking a lot of questions at that point, but it was just oh, you know what, I did say something to her.
The function of adverbs is to modify verbs, strengthening or weakening them. Here, really weakens the idea that it wasn't something they discussed, so really comes across as a linguistic self-defense mechanism. Like is a recurring word in Nichole's language. So we could be inclined to say that this is just how she speaks, but notice that it serves as hedging here, moderating disgust so that she's free to take this definition back at a later point if necessary. These are all small points, but combined they form a pattern. However is an adverb with a modifying quality to it rather than the flat contrast which the conjunction but connotes. With however, she's modifying the assertion in the preceding clause, so she avoids making it sound like she's contradicting herself. However, she is indeed modifying, indicating there's another level to what she stated. So she found it important to first protect herself and second draw conclusions for the agent. She lets the agent know that she had to go back to realize what she's about to tell him, that it's therefore not information that she's concealed so far. Now Nichole's preface to the real answer is done. Let's find out what she supposedly realized. I did realize signals resistance towards admitting this. She uses did as an auxiliary verb to realize. Realize connotes a process. She doesn't just plainly say she saw it, but advances it. Offhandedly suggests a presumed lack of interest or careful thought. So again, Nichole's downplaying the importance of her utterance. This is a well-established pattern by now. A little bit is minimizing language. These are extra words which are thus extra sensitive for the subject apparently. It's unnecessary language because it doesn't take away from the fact that she mentioned Chris to her friend. So the function of these words is self-protection and probably also to advise the agent not to talk to her friend. Her self-repair serves a purpose as self-repairs typically do. She interrupts herself to say the euphemizing metaphor, how deep the rabbit hole went. Euphemisms are by definition unreliable, and they indicate distance to the word they replace, the actual word, so to speak. Either Nichol hasn't fully admitted her role in the affair to herself, or she tries to present herself in a more positive light to the agent, or both. I guess you could say it shows us that Nichole's aware that this way of phrasing it is an alternate one, not the actual word. Vague is prefaced with the hedge kind of, which may suggest that it wasn't so vague after all.
You guys, I think I just looked at the messages, and there was some little bit of conversation regarding, he's got kids. There was some conversations about some sexual related stuff, and that was about it. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that's it. But I mean, I did mention it to her, and honestly, we've talked since then, and I haven't even mentioned him, and that girl's so wrapped up in everything that's going on in her life. I don't even think she realizes what's going on in the news. Okay. I don't even think she's going to connect the dots. I would be surprised. I honestly am convinced that if I don't say a word about it, I bet you she won't even bring him up.
Okay.
And even if she did, if I was just he's not around anymore in my life, I don't even think... I'm not concerned about her.
Okay. And the only concern I had there is there seemed like there was some conversation about a boyfriend, and it doesn't seem like, so you were actually talking to her about Chris, not a boyfriend. I went back through those texts. I'm like, what is he talking about? I don't see anything about eHarmony. I mean, and if it's in there, maybe it is, and I just missed it. But okay.
It's
honestly, it's a form of meta-communication. The subject shows us they're suddenly aware of themselves, aware of what they're saying. Why the use of it if she's convinced? The fact that a subject doesn't just presuppose honesty opens up for a wide range of speculations. No matter what, it reveals that this particular point is extra sensitive. Multiple times, Nichol emphasizes negative verbs with even. One of these is different. This is used to highlight the improbability that her friend has anything useful to say. Nichol's directing and almost instructing the agent on what to think. Concerned is an interesting verb choice. She brings up the topic of concern and lets us know that she may be concerned with what her friend has to say. Immediately after this, the agent parrots a word concern. This happens in all conversations all the time. We copy each other's words and definitions. As human beings, we are governed by politeness, which sometimes overshadows our attention to what the other speaker is actually telling us. The agent should have been more alert to the word concerned and what it could possibly imply. Notice Nichol's perspective again. She finds it important to stress that she has to look back on these things, which linguistically eliminates the possibility that she has concealed this piece of information. Those points to distance, which matches her what is he talking about. It's obviously sensitive to her to apply distancing language to remove herself from Chris and this dating side as much as possible. As a hedge, I mean again weakens her preceding statements. While maybe it is and I just missed it, on one hand frees her from accountability, while on the other hand reveals that she is indeed concerned about this, since she keeps negotiating with herself linguistically.
No, I don't know.
It's not all that important. It's not all that important. So we can move past that. What else?
On Monday night, so a couple things. I told you he had like texted me, and then at the end of the night, he had called, or I had called. I think he called me, but either way, we were on the phone with each other. And like at some point when we were on the phone, he was like, "Do you want to FaceTime?" And I remember I was laying in bed, and I was just like, you know what? Okay, let me turn on the light. And I remember I turned on the light, and we FaceTimed. And when we FaceTimed, he didn't really say much. Like, it was almost kind of awkward. I don't even know why I didn't think of this earlier, but it was very short too. It was super brief. And
like what's short?
She starts out with minimizing language again. Verbs are inserted for a reason, and it happens within milliseconds. Here, remember is an unnecessary word, because we already know she's describing a past event. It's repeated 3 times in a shorter passage. Remember shows us that Nichole's aware of 2 levels. A present level, her talking to the agent, and a past level, her talking to Chris. In this context, remember has a self-protective function. It limits what she's saying to what she remembers, giving her leeway to not remember certain things until she either remembers them or until it's convenient and necessary for her to remember them. As we've seen in a previous video with Nichol, this is a recurring theme.
That information, when you look backwards in your memory with the conversations with Chris, anything that he might have said that would be relative to... Do you understand what I'm
No,
looking for?
I completely understand. I just feel like some of this happened so long ago that I can't tell you like the exact words of the exact conversation at the exact time and place, because it's like we had a lot of conversations. I mean, we talked every single day. So it's like I'm trying to help you guys with the stuff like the stuff that's more current. I can give you guys a lot more like detail and exact times. But when you're asking me about something that happened 6 weeks ago and exactly what was said, it's like, I mean, I'm sure I can give you a general idea, but to be honest with you, like to pinpoint exact words, it's not going to happen.
I'm not looking for exact words. Just more, let's say 6 weeks ago he said something that...
There's possible undisclosed information here that we should take note of. Didn't is noteworthy. Instead of telling the agent what Chris said, she's telling the agent what Chris didn't say, thus downplaying it. In general, people are concerned with what someone said, not what they didn't say. So stating this in the negative is sensitive and calls what she's negating into question. Really, again, weakens the assertion that he didn't say much, even indicates surprise, that it's unexpected she didn't remember this, even has an emphasizing function. What follows but is the syntactic and semantic focus of what a person wants to say. Here it's used to excuse the fact that she allegedly didn't think of this earlier, and she gets the opportunity to overemphasize the short duration of the FaceTime conversation.
Less than 5 minutes. I think it was only like a couple of minutes.
Okay.
And he I think we were like talking a little bit, but he was laying down on a mattress that didn't have any sheets on it. And I was like, okay. So I was thinking like, well, maybe he's in bed. I don't know what's up. But I remember asking him like, where's your sheets, you know? And he's like, oh, I washed them. And then this is the part I don't remember if this sentence right here came in this FaceTime conversation or if it came in a phone conversation prior to the FaceTime conversation, but regardless, this next sentence came on Monday night, and I'm so sorry that I cannot, like, always remember chronological every little detail.
That's okay, it's understandable.
Nichole's shifting between present and past tense. This shifting points to unreliable, not necessarily deceptive, but unreliable information, that the subject doesn't speak entirely from experiential memory, but is rehearsing the narrative in their mind. Nichol says she's so sorry, and on a surface level, it may seem like an apology, but notice how she frames it. It's a given that no one's able to always remember every little detail. No one's expecting that from her. The interesting thing is that Nichol brings it up herself, making it sound like an appeal to be pitied for having to remember so many things. So is she really sorry? No, she's not. But she's comforted by the agent nonetheless.
There's so much. But I remember he was saying that he was cleaning the house to try to keep busy, to take his mind off of things. And this was on the phone. And it was kind of late when he was doing it. And like, I didn't honestly think that much about it originally, because that man is always cleaning. Like, he's a very, very like organized, meticulous, clean individual. Like, he's the type of guy that will like vacuum his whole house one week, and if there's rooms that don't get used, he'd vacuum again the next week, just because it's like part of his routine.
There's so much suggests certainty about a considerable amount of information that she knows but hasn't said yet. She doesn't weaken it with an adverb like probably or something similar. That man reinforces the distance she tries to create to Chris, even though the two were close. While the last part of this passage is her once again excusing why she didn't react to what he said. That she didn't react to this is understandable. Most people wouldn't react to information about cleaning. What's interesting, though, is that she keeps mixing essentials with non-essentials. In a conversation like this, it can have a deflecting purpose. It's difficult for an agent to keep track of the essential information.
And you think this was Monday night? What time do you think it was Monday night?
Oh God, I don't even know. I almost wish you guys would show me my phone records.
So I'm gonna read.
As I stated in the intro, people want to tell the truth. So even though she uses almost to tone down her wish, I believe this is exactly what she wants. Getting the phone records would strengthen the consistency of her explanations. Also, this statement points to her indeed being concerned, the concern she negated but nonetheless brought up previously. In the following, I'll play a longer passage so that we can observe how Nichol gets the upper hand in this conversation. The two of them are discussing the times and durations of the phone calls between Chris and Nichol.
So that would take us to about 10:35, and then there's another call on Monday. It's for 51 minutes and 25 seconds, it looks like. I'm not sure, looking at this, who called who, but it looks like you called him, and that was at 11:09 p.m. That lasted 51 minutes, so that takes us to midnight. And then there's another phone call where he calls you. So we're now into midnight, Tuesday morning. It's a 30-minute phone call that lasts until 12:38 a.m. And then after 12:38 a.m., there's a 2-minute and 44-second phone call that that starts at 1:12 a.m. It's 2 minutes and 44 seconds.
Because there was texting in between that. So I think what happened is he called me on that first call, and then there's that gap between the first call and the second call. So that little gap right there between those two big phone calls at the very beginning of the night. Yes. I mean, not the very beginning of the night, but the big ones at the first two. So in between that gap, there's like a quick FaceTime.
So do you think that 2 minute and 44 second is the FaceTime?
The one at the very end?
Yeah. Well, so
I don't even think the FaceTime's on there.
Okay,
because the FaceTime occurred in between those two big phone calls. That,
okay. Okay.
Next, they keep talking about the exact times, and notice what Nichol says to end these speculations.
And that's when he texts you at like 3:45.
No, we talked during work. Remember, I told you he like randomly texted me throughout the day at work, but it was just like bullshit conversation.
Okay.
It wasn't like anything.
No substance. Okay. So the most important thing that you've said here is this Monday night phone call. He doesn't have any sheets on the bed, and he said his children's sheets were smelly.
They smelled.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's get back to that because I feel like you and me are kind of getting off track.
Yep.
So go to those.
This is the first sign of Nichol's upper hand in the conversation, calling the agent to remember what she said. The most direct sign is her saying she thinks they're getting off track. Here, the roles are reversed. Normally, it's the agent's job to say this. This way, Nichol's allowed to get away with minimizing language. She effectively shuts down the conversation, dismissing it as a digression.
Okay.
He was just like, I mean, like I said, he always cleans the house, but even if his kids were to be in diapers and like have accidents, like I just feel like the man keeps his house so clean, and she does too. They both must have to like coexist in a house that clean. But like, I just don't see anything in that house like smelling.
Okay. All right.
So that was why I brought that up, because I was like, whoa. Okay.
Very important. Thanks for remembering that.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm really trying to help you guys. I need you guys to help me too. Like,
Yes,
we'll
ma'am.
do this as a team, but just don't.
So the reason
Shanann's name hasn't been mentioned, yet Nichol uses the pronoun she to refer to her. This is distancing language.
She does too. They both must have to like coexist in a house that clean. But like,
She's also using present tense to describe her. This points to Shanann being very much present in Nichol's mind, despite the distancing she. Also, it's relevant to note that Nichol's hyperbolic language, speaking about how clean the house was, could be an indirect critique of their cleanliness. This part resembles another part of an interview with the same agent that I've analyzed, when Nichol speaks about Chris and Shanann having very expensive things in the house.
And I knew that those two had been through some financial trouble. I definitely found out a lot more about that situation in the newspaper recently. When I went to that house, everything in there is very, 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 very nice. It looks like it all comes with a very expensive price tag. And I didn't say anything to him about it, but I could kind of tell then where I was like just looking at everything like, how do you guys afford this? And he told me, he's like, I feel like my paycheck goes in my bank account and I just watch it go like this. He's like, but it doesn't have to. He's like, she makes it like that. It's a huge house.
Yeah.
I was very taken back when I saw it. I was just like, whoa.
A person can seek to repress their memories about a certain event, which is then manifested in their word choice, creating a distance to both the person they were involved with and this person's spouse. This is a defense mechanism. She's again fishing for sympathy, and the agent complies. He keeps offering her emotional support.
So I think your personal mental health is the number one issue. So let me help you with that and get a victim advocate to call you. And you can address questions of employment with them. I think they're better suited to answer those questions than I am. So I would ask you to direct questions to them. If they can't answer them, I'll try to help you as best as I can.
This video has an educational purpose, showing what an analyst would note in a police interview transcript. It's not about making speculations about Nichol's exact role in the case, nor is it about smearing anybody. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.
What I do know is it's just like, that wasn't fair to me either, because if I'd have known not even all the truth, but like obviously some of it, I wouldn't have even engaged in any of this in the first place. And it just, and that's the part for me, just like on my personal level, outside of everything that is happening, that is gonna affect me long term. It's like, I'm gonna wake up every day and know that like this mom and her unborn child and these two little girls are not around anymore, and it breaks my heart.